The Outlaw looks to put the lights out at UFC Live 5 from Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
It'd be a great fight.
And in the Sweet Science, 2 titles are on the line in a bantamweight showdown.
Well, this is my job. This is what I do for a living.
This is Fight Network's preview show.
Yeah, definitely going to be good.
Hey everyone, I'm Sarah Davis and you're watching Fight Network's preview show. The UFC holds their first event in Wisconsin as UFC Live Hardy versus Lytle takes place at the Bradley Center in Milwaukee. We'll be breaking down the card with John Ramdeen, and then Corey Erdman will join me later to preview Joseph Agbeko and Abner Mares. Now we kick off the show with a look at the main event for UFC Live 5. Former title contender Dan the Outlaw Hardy is looking to get back on the winning track when he faces veteran Chris Lights Out Lytle. After posing 7 straight victories, Hardy is on a career record 3-fight losing slide, while Lytle, who has won Fight of the Night honors 5 times, was on a 4-fight winning streak before dropping a unanimous decision to Brian Ebersol in February.
2 strikers will go to war in an exciting welterweight encounter when Dan the Outlaw Hardy takes on UFC veteran Chris Lights Out Lytle. Failing to put himself in the win column since UFC 111, Hardy returns to the octagon looking for a much-needed win. The Nottingham native managed to increase his stock after going the distance with welterweight kingpin George St. Pierre, but has since lost his momentum after succumbing to Carlos Condit by knockout and Anthony Johnson by decision. With 3 straight losses and his back up against the wall, the brash Brit steps into a bout that could play into his favor if his opponent chooses to keep the fight standing. Chris Lytle is notorious for participating in wars that have often earned Fight of the Night honors. Though the 36-year-old has never fought for UFC welterweight gold, he has secured his spot in the promotion by showcasing gutsy performances, assuming the role of a forward aggressor and often welcoming the opportunity to engage in a brawl. Lytle may rely on his other skills this time around in efforts of avoiding the British striker's strength. Lytle possesses supreme submission skills, as 70% of his wins have come by way of tap-out.
It's the tap out. It is a rear naked choke win for Chris Lights Out Lytle.
Hardy will have to let it all hang on the line as he fights to keep his spot under the Zuffa umbrella. It's a bout that has all the makings of a classic fan favorite, and with both fighters looking for their first win of 2011, we can expect these 2 welterweights to come out swinging.
Our MMA analyst John Ramdeen giving us the heart. You love me or you love them?
No, Chris Lytle and Dan Hardy are going to make all their dreams come true. Get it?
Is that okay?
Milwaukee, Laverne and Shirley.
No. I don't know.
Anyways.
No, that's not me. But let's talk about Chris Lytle. He used to compete in boxing, but he's actually won 19 of his 30 MMA career wins by submission. So where does his comfort zone lay?
Wherever the fight goes, Chris Lytle is one of these fighters that really, it doesn't make a difference. If you want to stand and trade, he'll stand and trade. If you want to go to the ground and try to test his jiu-jitsu game, he is more than happy to do so. I think the eye is on the bigger prize, and that is to feed his family and try to get another one of those big bonus checks, the Fight of the Night. And Chris Lytle is one of the most exciting fighters because he has that mindset.
Fight of the Night honors 5 times. Now, looking at Dan Hardy, he has a black belt in Taekwondo. Do you think he can stand and trade with Lytle?
I think that's his best option. I think he has to avoid the ground game and try to keep Chris Lytle at a distance and try to go for the knockout victory, because Dan Hardy really has his back against the wall. 3 losses in a row. He cannot sustain another loss if he wants to fight in the Ultimate Fighting Championship.
Are you surprised to see Dan Hardy in the main event for UFC Live?
I mean, he's an exciting fighter, and I think styles make fights, and that's why he matched him up against Chris Lytle. Chris Lytle not known for his knockout power. Hardy does have great submission defense, as we saw in his fight with George St. Pierre. So if the fight does go down to the ground, he's very, very difficult to finish. So I think both guys know exactly what they want to do. They both want to keep this fight standing. Both guys trying to go for the knockout and entertain the crowd. That's the most important thing. And if they can do that and get the Fight of the Night bonus, well, everybody's happy.
And what is your prediction?
I think Chris Lytle is smart enough, if the firefight doesn't go his way, to take the fight down to the ground and utilize his submission expertise. I don't know if he'll be able to take Dan Hardy out, but I think he will win via unanimous decision.
Hot on a winning streak, BJJ black belt Jim Miller meets former WEC lightweight champion Ben Henderson in the cage. Miller's only UFC loss was to lightweight title contender Gray Maynard, as he's since earned 7 straight victories. Henderson has won 11 of his last 12 bouts, most recently defeating Mark Bocek in his promotional debut at UFC 129.
The UFC's 155-pound division is one that is stacked with a number of top-notch competitors who possess strong wrestling skills. 2 rising lightweights who have exemplified the benefits of the grappling art will collide in a matchup that could lead to title implications in the near future. 27-year-old grappling ace Jim Miller puts his 7-fight win streak on the line against former WEC lightweight champion Ben Henderson. Miller has been steadily knocking off opponents since his appearance at UFC 100 and has done so impressively by showcasing a variety of talents. Recently defeating the likes of Mark Bocek, Gleison Tibau, Charles Oliveira, and Kamal Shellarus, the AMA Fight Club member has demonstrated why he deserves a step up in competition. And if he can put forth an impressive performance against Henderson, he could introduce himself into the title picture. Fighting out of the MMA lab, Henderson will prove to be an interesting challenge on the ground, since he submitted a number of his opponents with his favorite technique, the guillotine choke.
It did start around it, and now he jumps down, he's jumping in, he's got Henderson chokes him out. Henderson jumps the guard, pulls off the choke, that is it.
After dropping his title to Anthony Pettis in a bout that featured the famous Showtime kick, he went on to rebound against BJJ standout Mark Bocek in his UFC debut. With his first successful UFC outing under his belt, Henderson looks to continue his winning ways and once again climb to the top of the rankings. It's a bout between two very legitimate lightweights that will likely feature quick and solid exchanges wherever the fight goes.
John, both these guys are durable wrestlers, but how do you think they look when they stand and trade?
That's, I think, exactly where this fight is going to take place. We've got two guys to kind of neutralize the wrestling or grappling departments, and I think both guys will be forced to stand and trade, and I think it will be Jim Miller. I think he has crisper technique, and he has killer instinct, and he can take a punch in the face. Ben Henderson is no slouch, but I think he will be outclassed. I think Jim Miller has the more explosive knockout power, as we saw in his fight with Kamal Shellarus, so I think he'll be able to dictate the pace. And if the fight goes down to the ground, I think it is a wash. I think both guys are very experienced on the ground, so I think this fight will be contested standing.
And depending on who wins, do you think they will then enter title contention?
You would expect so. If Jim Miller does manage to get a victory over the former WEC lightweight champion, he really could make a case. The problem is, there are no rankings, and not a lot of people, except for the hardcore fan base, know who Jim Miller is. He's a very entertaining, very experienced, very talented fighter, but he has to go out there and put on the performance of his life if he wants the UFC brass to give him a shot at the lightweight title.
And Henderson's that much better known. Who do you think is going to win this fight?
I think it's Jim Miller. I think he's one of the most talented fighters in the lightweight division. If he can manage to get this fight down to the ground, which, you know what, if he picks his opportunities, I think he could do so. Stay on top and grind out a unanimous decision. I think he can do that. And if the fight stays standing, I think he can win in that realm as well. But I think this is Jim Miller's fight to win by unanimous decision as well. But anything can happen in mixed martial arts. I don't think it's going to be this night.
In a lightweight tilt, Charles Oliveira will try to wrangle Donald the Cowboy Cerrone. Oliveira suffered his first loss by submission to Jim Miller last December after going undefeated in 14 fights. The Cowboy, who's won Fight of the Night honors in the WEC and UFC, looks to build on his current 4-fight winning streak. Both these guys, they're well-rounded, but their striking's amazing, right, John?
Everything about these two guys are simply amazing. You have the youth of Charles Oliveira versus the experience of Donald Cerrone. This is going to be an absolute firefight. Both guys are very skilled on the ground. Both guys are skilled standing, and they both love to bring it. Donald Cerrone may have the edge because of his experience and where he trains at Jackson's MMA. Those guys are always prepared to go 3 rounds, if not 5 rounds in a championship fight. This is going to be an absolute barn burner.
But this wasn't even supposed to happen, right?
That's what happens, again, when guys get injured, they're replacement fights, and this is what we end up with, and the fans are going to be the benefactor of this lightweight tilt.
So this is going to be one of the more exciting ones. How do you see it all going down?
Again, it's going to be Donald Cerrone doing what he does, trying to dictate the pace early, trying to keep this fight moving forward, trying to get Oliveira backpedaling, and if the opportunity is there for him to take the fight down to the ground, he'll do it. If Oliveira manages to get Cerrone down to the ground, he is very, very slick off of his back, is the Cowboy, but Oliveira very well-rounded and very well versed in the submission department. So this is one of those fights where it is absolutely textbook technical, and both guys are going to showcase a well-rounded mixed martial arts skill set. I cannot wait for this fight.
Season 7 Ultimate Fighter winner Amir Sadollah will clash with veteran Duane "Bang" Ludwig in a welterweight bout. Sadollah has gone the distance in more than half of his fights, while Ludwig suffered back-to-back losses before defeating Nick Osipchak in a hard-fought split decision last November.
Duane "Bang" Ludwig emerged on the professional fight scene in 2000, training under former UFC heavyweight champion and mixed martial arts legend Boss Rutten. Known for his lethal stand-up skills, the Colorado native would split his time fighting in both mixed martial arts and kickboxing competition, capturing numerous Muay Thai titles along the way. With close to 80 fights under his belt, the 32-year-old has faced some of the sport's absolute elite, a list which includes former UFC 2-division champion BJ Penn and one of Muay Thai's greatest competitors, Ramon the Diamond Deckers. The former K1 Max USA champion has had a bumpy road throughout his fighting career, trying to focus on both styles of competition. Improving his skill set at the Grudge Training Center in Denver, Colorado, Ludwig hones his skills with some of the best fighters in the sport, including Shane Carwin, Donald Cerrone, and former UFC title contender Nate Marquardt. After dropping back-to-back fights, the proud father of two would earn a hard-fought split decision victory over Ultimate Fighter alum Nico Shipshak at UFC 122 in Germany, and is now poised to take on his second reality show veteran in as many fights when he meets the ever-improving Amir Sadollah.
I think, he's pretty technically sound. There's some openings that I see, but he's definitely one of the premier strikers as well. It's definitely in welterweight, so it's a good matchup, and I'm excited for it. Yeah, definitely going to be good.
If Ludwig can avoid the ground and keep the fight in his realm of striking, he should be able to take the 5-2 Sadollah apart with his pinpoint accuracy and deadly combinations. However, if he gets overconfident, the intelligent Sadollah could capitalize on the smallest opening and take the former UCC champion into the weakest area of his game. It's a do-or-die situation for the seasoned Ludwig as he searches for the 20th win of his career, which spans more than a decade.
Amir Sadollah, he's only ever fought in the UFC in his professional career, but he has rose steadily. He's fought some tough competition. Do you think he has what it takes to win this fight?
Well, if he decides to take the fight down to the ground, yes. Conversely, if he keeps this fight upright, he could be in big trouble. Duane Ludwig, one of the most talented Muay Thai practitioners in all of mixed martial arts. He's given the nickname Bang for a reason. And I think if Sadollah tries to test the water standing, it could be a very short night. But I think Sadollah is very intelligent. I think he'll try to take the fight where Ludwig is at his weakest, and that is the ground department, although he is steadily improving since he's rededicated his life to mixed martial arts.
How do you call this?
I think if Ludwig can sprawl and brawl and keep the fight upright, he could knock Amir Sadollah out. But if Sadollah is smart, he'll use his wrestling abilities and put Ludwig on his back and grind out a 3-round decision. What do I call? I think I have no idea. I'm going to say, go out on a limb, and I think that Duane Ludwig lives up to his namesake and knocks out Amir Sadollah.
There we go. Ultimate Fighter Season 7 runner-up CB Dollaway faces Jared Hamman, who is making his middleweight debut. The wrestler Dollaway was most recently knocked out by Mark Munoz in March, but he was on a 3-fight winning streak prior to the encounter. And with 9 knockout wins to his name, Hamman is coming off back-to-back Fight of the Night performances. We're not done with UFC Live 5 yet. Stay with us after the break as we preview the rest of the card.
It's an honor to be here.
Uriah Faber's training partner Joseph Benavidez looks for a 3rd straight win when he faces former WEC champion Eddie Wineland. Benavidez's only 2 blemishes are against current champion Dominic Cruz in fights that went the distance, while Wineland, who lost his promotional debut to Faber, has won knockout of the night twice in the WEC. Wineland, he's an underrated striker. Benavidez, a stellar wrestler. It sounds like these two styles are going to clash.
Yeah, absolutely, and we're going to see absolute fireworks between these two bantamweights. Both guys very entertaining, both explosive, both athletic, and both guys know what a victory means here. Eddie Wineland, outstanding striker, great off of his back, and again, underrated wrestling. You go back and look at his fight with Ken Stone, one of the best knockouts in recent memory in mixed martial arts, a throwback to the days of Rampage Jackson and Pride. So he knows what it means to get a victory over the highly touted Joseph Benavidez, and I think he'll push the pace, but it's going to be very difficult because Benavidez is a little juggernaut.
Well, if these two guys are so exciting, why the heck is this fight on the undercard?
Unfortunately, it's because there's no more WEC. I mean, the World Extreme Cage Fighting Organization, they promoted the lighter weight classes, and unfortunately, the casual observers like to see the welterweights, middleweights, light heavyweights, and heavyweights. That is their marquee divisions. So the best way for these guys to make the world notice is to go out and put on a firefight, and that's exactly what I expect.
We want to see those flurry of fists,
Exactly.
Right?
Fists, transitions, scrambles, and these guys are going to go full force for 3 solid rounds, and I expect Eddie Wineland to emerge victorious after 15 minutes.
Ultimate Fighter Season 3 finalist Ed Hamman will throw down with Australian Kyle Noke in a middleweight battle. Hamman has stopped 19 opponents in his 21 victories, and Noke is on a 5-fight winning streak, earning submission of the night in his most recent bout. The strong wrestler Carlos the Terminator Vamola faces newcomer Ronnie Marks in a light heavyweight bout. Vamola recently won knockout of the night when he pummeled Seth Petruzzelli at UFC 122, and Marks makes his promotional debut on a 4-fight winning streak. The undefeated Jim Hedges makes his promotional debut against Alex Caceres. Hedges has submitted all 8 of his victories in the first or second round, while Caceres, too, has never gone the distance and looks to bounce back from a recent loss in his UFC debut. In a lightweight battle, Cole Miller, who's won 12 of his 15 bouts by submission, faces TJ the Spider O'Brien, who has won all of his fights by submission. Both fighters are coming off losses in their most recent outings. When Edwin Figueroa and Jason Reinhardt enter the cage, they'll both be vying for their first UFC win. Figueroa had a perfect record until his promotional debut in March, while Reinhardt, who's never gone the distance, has only tasted defeat in the UFC. Both Jacob Volkman and WEC alum Danny Castillo will look to continue their 3-fight winning streaks when they enter the cage. Volkman has found success in the UFC after dropping down to lightweight, and Castillo won a unanimous decision over Joe Stevenson in his promotional debut this past March. After a split decision win over Antonio McKee at UFC 125, Jacob Volkman made some provocative comments in an interview with Ariel Helwani.
So now you got a big win over a veteran. Who do you want next?
It doesn't matter. Guida. I don't know. Actually, Obama.
Wow, you're calling out Barack Obama right now. That's pretty big. That's ballsy.
He's not too bright. He made a lot of like the making home affordable plan and then his healthcare plan. Someone's got to knock some sense into that idiot.
The brash statement caught attention from mainstream media, and here's the result.
What? Yeah, his attitude. He said he wanted to fight Obama. Not a smart thing to do. Look what happened. Take a look.
He's not too bright. He made a lot of like the...
Volkman returns to action Saturday night, but he won't get his desired matchup with President Obama. Instead, he'll have to tangle with WEC veteran Danny Castillo. After the break, it's winner takes all in a bantamweight battle that sees 2 titles on the line.
It's going to come down to whoever figures who out first.
This segment on the Fight Network is brought to you by The Ballroom, downtown Toronto's newest interactive entertainment center.
Now we turn to the sweet science in Showtime's final round of their 4-man bantamweight tournament. Joseph Agbeko will trade fists with Abner Mares for the IBF bantamweight and WBC silver bantamweight titles at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. Current IBF bantamweight champion Joseph Agbeko enters the fight with 22 knockouts under his belt, having never been KO'd himself, while Abner Mares will look to keep his undefeated record intact.
IBF bantamweight champion Joseph Agbeko and WBC silver bantamweight champion Abner Mares were originally scheduled to fight on April 23rd in Los Angeles, but Agbeko pulled out shortly before the fight, citing health issues. In the first round of the tournament, Mares was almost outclassed by Vic Darchinyan, but dug deep and showed he has resiliency.
Mares coming on. He's hurting hitting with those. Yeah, big body shots, uppercuts, going upstairs, throwing his entire repertoire out there right now.
On the other side of the bracket, Agbeko dictated and dominated much of his fight with Perez.
Seems like Agbeko from the start has dictated and dominated through his boxing.
On Saturday night, the world will bear witness as these 2 great warriors prepare for battle to crown the top fighter in the bantamweight division. Both these fighters possess great skills. Agbeko, a boxer brawler, has all the tools in his arsenal to win this fight.
Belt
drifting away is Agbeko.
Mares has shown great tenacity and adjustability in his previous outings.
Here's Abner Mares showing his mettle.
This bout will be very important for both fighters' careers inside of the ring. King Kong is looking to retain his belt and move forward onto bigger money fights.
You have to fight the best to become the best.
Mares, the younger, hungry, undefeated Mexican, will be looking to win a major title and move on to fight other elite boxers in the bantamweight division. The possible fight against KO King Nonito Donaire looming. Both these fighters will have to pull out all the stops to get a victory. Motivated by the possibility of bigger fights, Mares will try to use his youth to bring home the win. Hailing from Ghana, Agbeko enters the bout not only looking to defend his title, but also to represent his country proudly. Whether or not Mares' boxing skills are as good as the champ's is up for debate, but on Saturday night all the speculation will stop when one of these two warriors' hands is raised in victory.
Corey Erdman, our boxing analyst, joining me now. Corey, let's get down to it. Abner Mares, he's coming off a split decision win over Vic Darchinyan, even though he tasted the canvas in round 2. Do you think he has a strong enough chin to handle Joseph Agbeko's heavy-handed assault?
Well, this is what we love about Abner Mares, is that fighting spirit and that willingness to get into an action fight. But in boxing, Sarah, there is a difference between heavy hands and explosive knockout power, and Agbeko doesn't really have that knockout power at bantamweight. And it's funny to say this, but that's also why we love Joseph Agbeko. He throws a lot of punches, but he's not going to get you out of there. And what does that make for? 12-round action fights.
And how do you see this fight playing out?
I see Agbeko looking the same way he did against Yanni Perez. I think that Mares does a lot of things well, but he doesn't do a lot of things great. And I think that Agbeko, if he's tricky, if he keeps his distance, it's something that Mares just hasn't seen yet in his career. And I think he gets himself a 12-round decision.
Well, there you have it. Thank you, Corey. And thank you to John Ramdeen for joining me earlier to break down the UFC live card. That'll be it for the show. But if you're looking for more news or updates, visit our website, fightnetwork.com. And don't forget, we're also on Twitter. So send us out a tweet. Our handle is @FightNet. On behalf of the Fight Network, I'd like to thank the Ballroom for having us in their space today. And thank you for watching. We'll catch you next time.
Joined by the man known as Bang, Duane Ludwig. Mixed martial arts has climbed so rapidly over the last number of years. You've been in this game a long time. Did you expect this to be this big?
Yeah, of course, you know. I just knew with the right people behind it, like Dana and the Fertitties, and then of course the reality show bumped it up. We were on the lap, but with the right people behind it, I knew it would blow up eventually, and I'm glad it did, of course, because I've been in the industry, so